Good afternoon from sunny South Florida. Today we're going to talk about the Indian River Lagoon and, in specific, a type of mammal that is known only in this area, the Indian River Lagoon dolphin. Now, the Indian River Lagoon is an estuary, and that means that it's a body of fresh and salt water, actually known as brackish, and it contains about 0.8% saline. Now that's different than the ocean because the ocean is about 0.40% saline, and freshwater bodies such as lakes, inland lakes, they're only 0% saline. So an estuary is a body of water that is mixed. Now in our beautiful Indian River Lagoon, um, I'm going to tell you a few interesting things about it. It is 156 miles long, running from the Ponce de Leon Inlet all the way down to Jupiter Lighthouse. Now I'm going to insert a map here so you can get an idea about the length of it. Indian River Lagoon is made up of three different rivers: the Banana, the Mosquito, and the Indian Rivers. Now, those rivers contribute to this beautiful lagoon, which is actually at its deepest only 5 feet deep. So, you may say, well, what is a dolphin doing in this area? Well, dolphins have populated this area for many years, and they have adapted to the brackish water. Now, river dolphins our ancestors are related genetically to the Atlantic bottlenose dolphin, but they have some very specific differences. And one of the differences is that their or their noses are much longer. Now, you might say, wow, that's interesting, but you know, what does that mean? Well, think about it for a minute. What would it mean to have a longer nose when you're a dolphin? So, one of the adaptations this dolphin has is that it likes to forage for crustaceans and other small mollusks that are located in the seagrasses in the Indian River Lagoon. So having a longer snout actually helps you there. Now these dolphins are beautiful. We see them all the time here in the lagoon, but they don't do what you might normally think of dolphins doing out in the ocean in the wild. They don't jump up and display their athletic abilities. These dolphins tend to be a little bit shyer, and they do stay in pods just like an ocean dolphin, but they tend to migrate up and down the Indian River Lagoon according to the temperatures of the water. Now, again, talking about the Indian River Lagoon, and as you see, I'm in my beautiful South Florida backyard. Right now, I'm not able to take you to the lagoon, but I hope to in the future. We're all just under quarantine now, so we're just doing the best we can. The lagoon is really an amazing body of water. It actually houses over 4,000 different animals, insects, crustaceans, mammals. Um, so birds habitat this area too. Some of the earlier settlers in this area, in the Indian River area, Brevard area, used the lagoon extensively for oystering. Now, oystering and cultivating oysters was a huge industry in this area at one time. Unfortunately, it was the oysters were over harvested, and the lagoon became dirty. Now, why does a lagoon become dirty? Now, think about it for a minute. As the population rose, people began to enjoy the lagoon, and unfortunately did not pay attention to some things that were very important for the lagoon ecosystem. So, as boats began to increase along the lagoon, people enjoying recreation and also fishing, oystering, as I mentioned. The boats unfortunately might have contributed to pollution in the lagoon. Also, as we have an increased population along the lagoon, because obviously it's a beautiful place to live, people people contributed to the lagoons pollution by things like sewage output, which is a very unusual thing to think about. But up until 1965, my area, in particular the Indian River Lagoon area, actually dumped their sewage right into the lagoon. So that certainly added to the demise of the lagoon and to decreased health of the lagoon. We've also been plagued with recent outbursts of algae. Now, why does algae happen? Well, algae is a normal organism, but when excess chemicals in the form of fertilizer, herbicides, nutrients have been getting into the lagoon, unfortunately, due to agriculture and also due to homeowners who decide to fertilize their lawns. This actually impacts the lagoon because the nitrates and phosphates that get into the lagoon actually change the chemical structure of the ecosystem there, and it allows for algae blooms. Now, we've unfortunately had several severe algae blooms in the Indian River Lagoon, and those algae blooms lead to some very particular issues, such as fish kills, hypoxia in the lagoon. So let me tell you about that a little bit. We've had several major fish kills in the Indian River Lagoon, and I'm going to insert some information here about it. Now, why do those things happen? Well, when we have algae blooms, they tend to cover the entire surface of the water, so no light can penetrate. And that's an issue because in the lagoon, we're very fortunate to have about 7 different species of seagrasses. And these seagrasses are an important source of oxygenation for the water in the lagoon. Well, when light can't penetrate into the lagoon, and the seagrasses, which are angiosperms, they're flowering plants, cannot photosynthesize and release oxygen as one of their byproducts, the lagoon becomes hypoxic. Hypoxia is dangerous for all the organisms living in the lagoon. So that's obviously one of the problems. It's also a major issue with the travel industry, which is tourism is a very big industry in Florida, and tourism actually attributes to about $3 billion worth of financial health to the Indian River Lagoon. So when that's impacted, many people have issues with their jobs, or even just enjoying normal recreational activities.